So we are very glad to have Jaya Saci Prabhu with us. He is joining us live from the Zurich temple, if I'm not mistaken, from a very special room.
You're not mistaken at all. Very special room,
Prabhupada's room in the Zurich temple, and he will be speaking about text 428 of the Bhagavad-gītā As It Is. So I'll hand over to you. Take it away.
Wow, this was very professional. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So we'll read first, before we read Bhagavad-gītā, we'll offer respects to the author of many of the Vedas, of many Vedic literature, including Mahabharata, which Bhagavad-gītā is part of. So we'll say, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So 428. Dravya-yajñās, tapo-yajñā, yoga-yajñās, tathāpare, svādhyāya-jñāna-yajñāś, yatayaḥ saṁśita-vratāḥ. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. This is Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. It describes different paths. How can one achieve various kind of perfections? So purport of Srila Prabhupada. These sacrifices may be fitted into various divisions. There are persons who are sacrificing their possessions in the form of various kinds of charities. In India, the rich mercantile community or princely orders open various kinds of charitable institutions like Dharmashala, Annakshetra, Atithi-shala, Anantalaya, and Vidya Pita. So I happen to research a little bit what all this means. What is Annakshetra, Atithi-shala, Anantalaya, Vidya Pita? So Annakshetra, as we know, Anna means food. So Kshetra means a place. So this is the basically place to feed the homeless people. People who have no food, poor people on the street. It's called Anna Kshetra. Then we have Atithi-shala. Atithi-shala is for those persons who leave their homes to live alone. Like, for example, to live alone is a religious purpose. For example, in Varanasi or some holy place, they have this so-called Atithi-shalas. So you build this one so the people can practice, leave their home and go there and practice spiritual life. So this is a very, very pious activity. Then we have Anantalaya. Anantalaya means orphanage. This is the place. If you look all these names, if you look at it online, you'll find they actually exist. You know, there's in Mumbai one and different places, and they actually do these things. So Anantalaya is an orphanage place for you can help children in need. They said children and women in need. And on the end, Vidyapit. Vidyapit is the place as a seat of learning. So you open basically a school. Like, for example, in Mayapur, we have this Bhaktivedanta Thakur school. So somebody donated, to build this school. So these are all pious activities. So to continue further, in other countries, Srila Prabhupada says, too, there are many hospitals, old age homes, and similar charitable foundations meant for distribution of food, education, and medical treatment free to the poor. All these charitable activities are called dravya-yajñās. There are others who, for higher elevation in life, or for promotion to higher planets within the universe, voluntarily accept many kinds of austerities, such as Chandrayana and Chaturmasya. So Prabhupada now goes to the further. First there was this charitable organizations you build, you donate some of your money to some very pious cause. The second one is the people who achieve perfection or strive for perfection by doing this austerities, so-called. So Prabhupada says now, for example, under the Chaturmasya vow, the candidate does not shave for 4 months during the year of July to October. He does not eat certain foods. He does not eat twice in a day or does not leave home. We know that our spiritual master of the Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada performed very rigidly this Chaturmasya. He was, as Srila Prabhupada narrated, he would put the kitri, which is unsalted, just boiled rice and dal, and put it on the ground, on the bare ground. And then he would put his hands behind his back and he would bend, and whatever bite he can do at once, this would be his food for the day. He adopted this, is, I don't know exactly the Sanskrit terminology, but this is a cow posture. So he eats like a cow, the rice and dal, and that would be his food for the day. So this is a very severe austerities Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati performed. So then, and of course, not shaving for 4 months, not cutting nails, and all these things. And some travel to all the sanctified places of pilgrimage. Sometimes in India, you can see the villages, they travel the whole village, 50, 60, sometimes 100 people. They walk on foot for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, and they carry Tulsi Dev in their heads. And they sing various songs, and so that they can arrive during the Kartik time to Vrindavan, for example. And you can see some huge group of pilgrims, with their Tulsis. They imagine you carry Tulsi Devi, pot of Tulsi Devi for 300 kilometers walking back. So these are all different kind of austerities. Some travel to all the sanctified places of pilgrimage. All these practices are called yoga-yajñā, sacrifice for a certain type of perfection in the material world. There are others who engage themselves in the studies of different Vedic literature, specifically the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutras, or the Sankhya philosophy. All of these are called svādhyāya-yajñā, or engagement in the sacrifice of studies. All these yogis are faithfully engaged in different types of sacrifice and are seeking a higher status of life. So this is interesting. The Bhagavad-gītā, particularly here, Srila Prabhupada's purport, very clearly discerns what is what. This is, charity is a charity, austerity is an austerity, and studying the scriptures. These are the three big groups of people who try to get some higher destination or higher knowledge or some higher way of living, which is very interesting. People who don't know basically this basic philosophy, it's very confusing. You go to India and there's this guru and that guru. And when I first time arrived to India, there was a newspaper. I saw it on the newspaper stand everywhere. There's some yogi who was in cage. They put him in the cage, and they wrapped him with the chains, and they submerged him into the water for 3 days. He was not, they kept him in the water for 3 days. And after 3 days, he was totally fine. He was breathing and everything was okay. This was like a huge event. So if you don't know, you would think, wow, who is this? And then you go 10 kilometers further, and then you see somebody studying the Vedas, reciting the Sanskrit. Then you go further, you see somebody's building. So then it's a very confusing thing. But Srila Prabhupada was very clear here. What is what? And then at the end, he said in the purport, Krishna consciousness, however, is different from all these because it is the direct service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any one of the above mentioned types of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental. So this is very, very clear, and this is the unique contribution of an acharya, particularly Srila Prabhupada, as Prabhupada disliked when devotees sing after the Guru Puja, devotees sing Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't like this Jagat Guru. He said, because this is the Jagat Guru they use in the Shankaracharya Sampradaya. And he said, he called himself Jagat Guru and he has never went outside of his village. Prabhupada actually was a Jagat Guru. He's a guru for the whole world. And he very, very clearly, as an acharya in the disciplic succession coming directly from Krishna, he gave very clear path. This is the way, this is the way, this is not the way, this is not the way. So I was just looking first, what if this is not the way, what is the way? And what is the way is given by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, so-called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is a Sanskrit term. And Srila Prabhupada also translated, wrote it as a synopsis, as a short version of it. And he gave us this book. We can read it. And there it is explained what is devotional service. If this is not devotional service, if by doing all these amazing things, helping so many poor people, helping so many people in need, helping people get educated, helping people practice some kind of spirituality, facilitating them, building temples, building things, doing some austerities for ourselves, and studying the scriptures. If this is not enough, what is actually devotional service? As Prabhupada says here, these things are all insufficient. Here, one more time. Krishna consciousness, however, is different from these because it is the direct service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any one of the above mentioned types of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental. So how do we attain this mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees? Their process, which is called bhakti yoga, as in India or even now in the West, in many yoga communities, they translate bhakti, or they say bhakti is love. Prabhupada was not so much keen on this word, love. Prabhupada was much more, he translated bhakti as devotional service. Because if there is a devotional, there's a love, there must be some service. This was Prabhupada's reasoning behind this. And also we offer some service to the Lord. And in this way, we show our love. So I selected, there's 64 different items, and I selected several, which are interesting. And Prabhupada says here, there's 64 items of devotional service, and they include all the activities of the body, of the mind, and of the speech. So these are our austerities, these are our charities, and these are our study. So activities of the body, activities of the mind, and activities of the speech. We speak certain things. So Prabhupada says, the regulative principle of devotional service means that all our senses must be employed in the service of the Lord. So now there's the 64 items explaining how can these be employed in the service of the Lord. So now the very famous ones, particularly first 7, 8. One is accepting the shelter of the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. So this is an austerity in itself, to actually accept the shelter of the lotus feet. This is particularly emphasis on shelter, because people nowadays are so puffed up that they cannot accept somebody's lotus feet. They were not even called the lotus feet. We had once one bhakta who was he was a brand new bhakta, and he came like first time, and he saw everybody offer obeisance, and he said, I really like what you do, and I want to be Hare Krishna, but this I cannot do. I cannot bow down to a man. He was like a 17 years old kid, and he said, I can bow down to God, I can offer my respects to God, but to man, never. So this is a very big austerity, to accept a person and say, okay, I trust this person. Once there was a question, one guest, I think on the Sunday feast, asked Veerabhahu Prabhu, and Veerabhahu Prabhu told me that he said, the knowledge that you have, that you give just now, you gave this lecture, does it come from man or comes from God? So he said, yes, he's explained already. Ultimately, it comes from God. He said, but who gave you this knowledge? He said, ultimately, it comes from man. But these are not ordinary men. So then he went to explain that our acharyas, they are not ordinary people. These are not ordinary men. So therefore, to accept a shelter of as he said here, of a bona fide acharya, bona fide spiritual master, it's a great austerity, actually. It's a big austerity. That you just have to submit to somebody and say, okay, I will accept you as my spiritual teacher. Because people accept teacher in any kind of other department, but not in the department of spirituality. They will accept teacher in soccer, in basketball, in anywhere, any sport, any whatever, art, music. But when you tell them that you have to accept a guru, no. Because he's a man, I can have in my own heart, which is a very foolish thing to say. We cannot just say, okay, I want to now play violin, and you just buy a book and you just now hold this way and those. You can never learn how to play. I mean, you can probably learn somewhat, but you will never be a good player. But when the question of spirituality comes, people have already their own opinions and they do not want to accept any man. So this is the big austerity, number one. Second austerity is even more deeper than that. Not just accepting shelter, but become initiated by the spiritual master and learn how to discharge devotional service from him. Imagine, initiation. You have to tell somebody, from now on, I will follow the 4 regulative principles the rest of my life. I mean, this is a very heavy thing. Very, as Bhishma, when Bhishma Dev in Mahabharata promised to be celibate to the rest of his life, the demigods were shouting, oh, Bhishma, terrible, terrible. It's a terrible vow. But we have 4 terrible vows. We give promise to the 4 very terrible vows. No illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. Meaning, to the rest of your life, you cannot drink a beer anymore. I mean, this is a huge sacrifice. To the rest of your life, no burgers anymore. Wow. To the rest of your life, you cannot play the lotto, whatever the gambling you do. And not to speak of the illicit sex. For the rest of your life, no more. These are heavy, heavy vows. So this is initiation. And not just initiation, okay, I promised all this and now I'm free. But then you have to learn from then on. This is the beginning of your actual spiritual life. And from then on, you learn how to practice spiritual life. This is the way how to do it. And then you learn and you study and you actually, as we say, get into it. And this is the beginning of the path. The door has been opened and now you just have to go forward. So this is another yet austerity. And within this, we perform devotional service. we study the scriptures, and we do some austerities, as we said, particularly these four things. Then one of them, of course, we have some other things, but I'm skipping some. I'm not going through all the 64. Being prepared to give up anything material for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada says here, in the parentheses, this means that when we engage in the devotional service of Krishna, we must be prepared to give up something that we may not like to give up. And also, we have to accept something that we may not like to accept. So this is another austerity. I was just listening to this story of Brahmananda Prabhu, recently departed, I think, or famous Brahmananda Prabhu, who was once with Prabhupada in India. No, he was in America, but Prabhupada had a program in India, public program. And one Indian man challenged Prabhupada. He said, why are you here coming to India to preach this? We know all this. We know Bhagavad Dharma. We know Krishna. We know Bhagavad-gītā. Why are you speaking to us? You should go somewhere where people don't know anything about Krishna. The people don't want to accept Krishna. You should go to Pakistan. In Pakistan, they don't know Krishna. They don't want to accept Krishna. Why don't you go to Pakistan? And Prabhupada became angry and he said, you are challenging me? And he said, yes, I'm challenging you. And Prabhupada said, okay, you will see. We will go to Pakistan. So Prabhupada immediately sent a message to Brahmananda and his brother Garga Muni. Immediately tomorrow, go to Pakistan to preach. So these devotees, they were at that time sannyasis, but very young people, young at age. They just immediately got, Brahmananda didn't even have money. He went through some land by bus or this and that. He went to Pakistan. His brother went to Pakistan. Brahmananda, and alone. Hare Krishna. Okay, I got a letter from my university. I'll look at later. So they divided. Hare Krishna. How to they divided. Brahmananda Prabhu went to Western Pakistan and Garga Muni went to Eastern Pakistan. Imagine, alone, young man went to Pakistan. And he says, wherever they went, they started playing cartels. People came spitting on them, shouting on them, you should be dead, and this and that, and become very dangerous because they did not know that at that time the war was going on. So they just went in the middle of this dangerous situation. And of course, Prabhupada immediately told them, come back immediately, leave Pakistan, come to India, and so on and so forth. This is a long story. And then, but meanwhile, the newspaper announced that 4 Hare Krishna devotees are killed. So Prabhupada thought that my disciples are killed because of me. There was a whole story, but then somehow they came, everybody was alive, everything was okay. But the point here is that they wanted to do something which maybe not necessary they would like to do. Like, okay, let me go to Pakistan in the middle of the war. But for Prabhupada, they are ready to do this. So this is the point here, what Rupa Goswami explains, that devotee is being prepared to give up anything material for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Another one is also, it's very important for the devotees, accepting only what is necessary or dealing with the material world only as far as necessary. This is another also austerity. We are just, as Prabhupada says, simple living, high thinking. And why was he say this? He would say this because he said we work just to maintain our body and soul together, to maintain the body and soul together, and the rest of the time we use to chant Hare Krishna and to practice spiritual life. So this is very important, that we acknowledge this material world. It exists, it is real, it's not an illusion, but we deal with it as little as possible. And nowadays, it is not so easy to do so. Material world is everywhere, particularly with this pandemic. You cannot just say, I don't care, it's everywhere. You have to wear a mask. You cannot just say, I don't want to wear a mask. You cannot, but then you will not be able to enter a store, for example. I don't know, whatever the store is. So we have to deal with material world, but as little as possible. And we know I have to just do my business here, but the main focus is on spiritual life. So this is yet another also austerity. Another one is observing the fasting on Ekadashi. All this what I'm reading, these are just items of devotional service. This is what bhakti is. This is bhakti. All these things are bhakti. So practicing Ekadashi is bhakti. We know even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, God himself, his mother asked him, what can I do for you? And he said, please promise me that from today on you will follow Ekadashi. He asked his mother to follow Ekadashi. He could say, oh, for women and children is okay. He said, no, you follow Ekadashi. So then Mother Sachi was following Ekadashi. Ekadashi means for us, no grains. Prabhupada says, no beans. This is Ekadashi. And in the other sides, Srila Prabhupada write that Ekadashi actually means reducing completely eating and sleeping and just fully engage in devotional service. So at least twice a month, we do some extra. When I even joined in the 90s, some gurus had their disciples at the initiation promise that for Ekadashi they will chant 25 rounds. This was part of the vow. You could chant 16 rounds normally, but when Ekadashi, you chant 25 rounds. Which means Ekadashi is not only, okay, today we are not eating, we just eat potatoes instead of bread, but Ekadashi means that we are increasing our devotional practice, our chanting, our reading, our service. We do a little extra. Okay, next. Of course, the chanting of the holy name, and one should carefully avoid the various offenses in chanting the holy name of the Lord or in worshiping the deity in the temple. So this is yet another thing. To chant Hare Krishna is very nice. Srila Prabhupada says, chant to be happy. So chanting is very nice. We just chant. But with this chanting come also some restrictions, offenses to be avoided. We know there are 10 offenses. And the more we try to follow this, actually not follow, to avoid these offenses, our chanting will be better. Our chanting will increase and our chanting will be fruitful. This is very important. We just heard here in this today lecture from a friend of mine from Mayapur, a Kinchana, Balaram Prabhu, who was saying that the chanting of the holy name, the holy name is not different from Krishna. So we cannot perceive Krishna in chanting because our senses are contaminated. I mean, contaminated is a heavy word, but our senses are impure. So he said, we can measure our own advancement by seeing when we chant how much we see Krishna in the holy name. So when we see it, we chant Hare Krishna, we just see Krishna. That's our senses are completely clear from all material attachments. But if not, that means there's still some work to be done. So this Hare Krishna. The offenses need to be avoided. Anyways, I have some more. I have actually one more story, but I don't know anything to anybody. I don't know how many participants are there in the Zoom. So if anybody has anything to ask or something, then I can, after this, I can continue with another story of Srila Prabhupada.
There are 14 participants in total.
Okay.
Not counting the people who are maybe sitting at home, like with 2 or 3 other people, we don't know. But yeah, if any one of you has a question, you can type it into the chat box, or you can just unmute yourselves and type and speak right away. Otherwise, we're very eager to hear the story.
Karuna Shakti Das.
Jai Shri Ram. You talked about bhakti.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Right, and you were talking about okay, you were giving examples of Pakistan and all that, which I did not think it was bhakti, because the followers, the disciples, actually went ahead following what the guru did, or what the guru asked. And in the Gita, it is written that you have to follow the right guru, because the guru then knows what he should ask of the disciples. Sending people or disciples to Pakistan in your story, as when there is a war going on, was not the right thing to do, in my opinion. But in any case, I cannot say much on that. But when you talk about bhakti, and then I just finished reading the Bhagavad-gītā yesterday. So I was, and it's very confusing. It is actually a very big text, very detailed, but it's the fourth time I'm actually reading this. I have read this Gita, and every time I read it, there is some, there are always some more questions, because in the first 6 chapters, we talk about something, and then the last 6 chapters, it becomes very different.
Yes.
So I would like to understand this concept of bhakti exactly, away from karma yoga or jnana yoga, because because what you have said now is a mix of jnana yoga and karma yoga, whereas what I understood, well, the bhakti yoga was simply doing everything in Krishna consciousness, which doesn't mean that we have to do 16 malas or this or that, but just having, feeling it in our heart that about Krishna, that is bhakti. I mean, I know in the Gita, it is written that one should find a teacher, and another thing, but also it is written that one can actually just do the japa, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, and he himself will get all the gyan or all the Vedas within, because Gita itself is the Vedas. But I'm very confused. If you could enlighten me, that would help, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, this is a very confusing topic. Therefore, Bhagavad-gītā is studied for thousands and thousands of years by very great scholars. Bhakti means, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is written that bhakti means the activity. There has to be activity, and there has to be anushilanam, very favorable to Krishna. And therefore, the guru is the person who is, you can say, explaining to a disciple what is favorable to Krishna. Because if in the Bhagavad-gītā, it is described that karma yoga can also be, there's a karma yoga, there's a jnana yoga, there's a dhyana yoga, there are different yogas, and bhakti yoga too. But if this being engaged, you can see when you read Bhagavad-gītā as it is, or you read some other Bhagavad-gītā, Bhagavad-gītā as it is, and you can see that Srila Prabhupada explains that all this, if applied in a certain way favorable to Krishna, can be actually become a bhakti. Jai Hare Krishna. So nice. Thank you. So bhakti actually means this which Krishna likes. And like Krishna, as you see, the first chapter is called Vishada Yoga, the yoga of dejection. That Arjuna was very confused. Krishna, you tell, I'm supposed to fight. I mean, this is such a terrible situation for Arjuna. You imagine, I mean, I'm just reading now recently how difficult this situation for Arjuna is. This is like an amazingly difficult situation. that you have to fight and kill, and you know Arjuna is able to do this, to kill his own teachers, his own relatives. This is a very, very difficult situation. And Arjuna said, I don't want to do this. And then Krishna explains this whole thing to convince him that this, what you're doing, is actually pleasing to me. And Arjuna could not understand this, but bhakti means that which pleases the Lord. So therefore, when we practice this Krishna consciousness, we chant, we follow these certain principles, we take initiation, as I read different aspects of from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. We do this to please the Lord. This is our intention. Has to be intention of pleasing the Lord. So therefore, Guru is an essential person in this, because Guru is the person who shows us how to do this. And when you read Srila Prabhupada's books, read Srimad Bhagavatam, and you see how different, and you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, you see how Lord Chaitanya is acting, how the different devotees are acting. So you see, okay, this is how I should do. And this is what is pleasing to the Lord in this particular yuga. Because they're in different yugas, there are different ways to please the Lord. Different, you can say, authorized ways to please the Lord. The different types of bhakti, you can say. But in this particular time, Kali Yuga, we have this way. And so therefore, we try to do as much as possible to please the Lord. And you can see those who actually do, they are making progress in spiritual life. And yeah, this is what I have to say for now. If this is, yeah, thank you. I don't know if anybody else has a, or we can just go on. It's already 40 minutes. How long, Prabhu, how long should I go until?
Until 8 o'clock, around 8 o'clock.
Okay, I'll do maybe 10 more minutes. Okay, thank you one more time for the question. I wanted to tell you this story, what I read recently. This is the story from the Prabhupada Lamrita, about Srila Prabhupada's early days, how Srila Prabhupada dealt in such a difficult situation with the desire to please his Guru Maharaj, to please Krishna. Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter in 1936, wrote a letter to his Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. How should I serve you? I'm a grihasta. It's very difficult for me. I'm not your, I have a business, and I'm not your sannyas disciple. How can I serve you? And Bhaktisiddhanta, just before he left the body, just like a few weeks before he left the body, he answered, and he said, I would like that you preach this in English language. Preach this Krishna consciousness in English language. So this was the direct order of the spiritual master. So this is significant there, to connect again to this bhakti thing, that Krishna instructs us in the heart, and as Paramatma, of course, and he gives us different ways, different instructions, different inspirations. But Krishna shows himself, but this can be very tricky and very difficult to understand, because we can use our mind and we can think, oh, this is what God wants me to do, or God doesn't want me to do, and this can become a mental thing. But what is sure is that Krishna is Antaryami Krishna. This external manifestation of Krishna is actually a Guru, Bonafide, authorized Guru. So therefore, it is very important to have a spiritual master who would actually teach us, who is the external representative of Krishna, who will teach us how to practice devotional service. And by pleasing him, we are not pleasing him, we are actually pleasing Krishna. As Prabhupada says, on the altar, when we offer to arati to the deities, we offer first to the Guru. And it says the Guru is the one who is doing the arati, we are just the assistant. So this is our attitude. The attitude is that we are the assistant of our Guru. And by pleasing our Guru is pleasing his Guru, and in the end, Krishna is pleased. This is how the disciplic succession works. So Srila Prabhupada asked his Guru Maharaj, how can I serve you? And he said, you should preach this in English language. So Prabhupada took it to the heart, although he was already still businessman, married man. He tried to preach this in English. But the only problem was this was already in 1939. The war has started in India. The Second World War has started. And it was very, very difficult. There was no paper. There was a famine. There was a very, very, very difficult situation. Also, his own religious institution was not doing so well. So Prabhupada was in this midst of this very, very difficult situation. He wanted to print Back to Godhead magazine. But the problem was there was no paper. So Prabhupada wrote to the government of India, I need a paper to print this magazine, spiritual magazine. And the government says, well, this is not the time. This is not the best time, because who needs now spiritual knowledge? So Prabhupada explains, no, this is the best time for the spiritual knowledge. Because I was thinking, when I was reading this, I was just thinking about this pandemic and all people wearing masks and not allowed. This is actually the best time to practice spiritual life. Because the Prabhupada says there's nothing lacking in this material world except lack of Krishna consciousness. There's always some problems, always some difficulty. And so I just thought this is the very good example of what devotional service is, that one tries to please his spiritual master in even the most adverse situations. And in the end, the government somehow changed their mind. They gave papers to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada started printing Back to Godhead magazine. Of course, from then on, it just went on, and Prabhupada then went to the West and spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. But he always says, I don't have any credit. If I have any credit, this is only that I followed the instructions of my Guru Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda. So again, this is bhakti, this is devotion. Devotion means to follow the instructions of the authorized, bona fide spiritual masters, because we are not pleasing them personally, but we're pleasing them because they are always thinking how to please Krishna. So it's like a continuation. So therefore, all these processes, the different processes here we described in Bhagavad-gītā, in the purport, in the verse, in the purport, these are all helpful, but the devotional service to Krishna has to go through this channel, as I just said. So I thank you very much, Hare Krishna. I think this is okay, 45 minutes. It's good enough. So thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Maybe there is the chance to ask 1 or 2 or 3 questions. There is not yet anything in the chat box. So last chance, last call, as they say at the airport.
Okay, I think this is... So, Hare Krishna, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for inviting me. And yeah, Hare Krishna, till the next time.
Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you who have joined us tonight. It was very nice, and we hope to see you again soon, and also to have Jaya Sacinandana Prabhu with us sometime soon, and hear another lecture from the Bhagavad-gītā and some more stories maybe from Prabhupada. Maybe not, depends on when it will be, from Prabhupada's room or from somewhere else, but we're always keen to hear some interesting stories and some Prabhupada Leela. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.